All right, well, you've seen all of the cool stuff that you can monitor with JConsole, all those awesome MBean counters. You may be wondering, okay, that's great, but I don't want to do it interactively. I'd like some of those counters to be monitored by TabMon for me automatically. How do I do that? It's actually pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do is show you a Virgin configuration file. This is essentially the counters.config file that you will find in the config folder of TabMon. And then I'm going to show you how to modify it so that you can add whatever you want to that file and have TabMon track it. You'll see that at the highest level, this sucker is separated into two areas. Windows perfmon counters at the top and the JMX MBean counters at the bottom. Why don't we start with the Windows stuff? For many of you who've been doing this for a while, these are all going to be counters that sound very familiar. You know, the physical disk class, give me % disk read time or write time, what's the queue length, etc. Nothing really new here, but you can get a feel for the counters that are automatically being monitored here. If you wanted to add your own, you can. You're just going to come in and maybe add a different one above and beyond % processor time. If we get down to the MBeans, we'll see all of the counters that automatically show up inside the sample TabMon report that you have probably already been playing with. So for example, external abstract query cache hits is there. How about image cache hits? Some other things that are of interest, maybe the number of sessions. This is one that we spent a little bit of time with, the number of active sessions. So you'll see that some of the stuff is here, and some of the things that you may have found via JConsole is not here. You know, here, for example, and this will look very familiar if you just finished watching the previous video, here is VizPortal. And here are all of the classes that one can connect to, and then the actual individual MBean counters. So I showed you login, but what about guest login? Request failed, overall request processed, and request latency. So it's all here. Now, if you want to modify this, very straightforward. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say that we're back in Windows land and we're looking at physical disk. Now, you may ask yourself, is this counter or are these counters in aggregate really useful to me when they're monitoring all of the disks on my machine? If I have installed Tableau Server on my D drive or my E drive, I may not really care what read time is on C drive, my OS. So the first thing that you can do is actually come in here and make these a little bit more specific. Let me show you mine as an example. So here is my physical disk, and I'm using the same counters, but you can see I've added an instance name element where I am essentially pointing to the disk that I want to monitor. In this case, the D drive. And I'm doing that with essentially all of the counters that are in play. I also took this a step further. I added a non-default perfmon disk counter. I think personally that monitoring disk latency via the average disk second transfer counter is a really good way to understand if the disk is performing well. So I added in a counter itself, and then I added in the instance. So that's something that you can do quite easily, and then just start up again, and you're going to be in good shape. Let's take a look again at the Virgin file. You saw the MBean counters that are here by default. Under session, for example, if we open this up, let's see, under VizQL, and sessions right here, we're only tracking active sessions. I wanted to watch sessions in flight as well. So all one needs to do is we'll close this up and kind of get to what we care about. How about close that and all this stuff. I'm going to get to my VizQL server, open that up. get to my sessions, and you'll see that not only do we have active sessions, the one that was there before, I just added in a little element here to track sessions in flight. So pretty straightforward. You're going to stop TabMon. You're going to add or modify this file, the counters.config file, however you wish. And then when you're done, you're going to restart TabMon. Now, just to be safe, when you restart TabMon after making changes like this, make sure you pop open the log that automatically is generated. It goes in your logs folder, and make sure that adding these new counters was successful, that you didn't fat finger something as you were typing it in, and that TabMon is happy and actually able to add that new counter to the database, to the table rather, in Postgres. Every once in a while, probably because of mistakes that I made, I found that that didn't work correctly. And after I added in a counter, the smartest thing for me to do was actually manually delete the table in question inside the Postgres database and have TabMon automatically recreate it with the new columns in place for the counters that I added. Again, I suspect that's more me than TabMon, but it's something that could happen to you as well. Hope that was helpful.